Welcome back to the Green Line Gazette, episode 14. We're going to be breaking down all the European finals today, going on starting tomorrow with Aston Villa as we take on Freiburg in the Europa League. Excuse me. I'm in a little bit of a different setup here, coming from my house here at home, so no speaker or mic as we normally would have, but I think we're gonna do just fine. But like I said, we're breaking down Arsenal's Prem win in their UCL final with PSG coming up, everything that's got to go on with Villa, and then we'll get into Palace and Rayo's Conference League final as well. Remember, throw a listen, subscribe to us on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and give us a good follow on Instagram as well. I would really appreciate that. Without further ado, we might as well just get right into it here. So I mean, yeah, right. Arsenal have won the Prem as of tonight for the first time since 2004, after City drew with Bournemouth 1-1. They almost lost to him. I mean, Holland scored in the 90 plus 5. So yeah, the Arsenal didn't even have to play, didn't come to the final day. City have handed them that first title since '04. It's been 22 years, which is, kind of wild, especially how they've, consistently been the second place team. We've always talked about them. Arteta's finally got his big one, and I'm sure they're definitely not done. I mean, they're looking to get that UCL, which we're going to talk about later. But yeah, I mean, yeah, this title run's been interesting. So, I mean, I guess I'll preface it with this team had 0 red cards and given to them, excuse me, and 0 penalties conceded, which is, I don't think, ever been done in the history of the Premier League in a single season, which is insane. I mean, you can say what you want, but there was definitely even Burnley with I think it was might have been Martinelli in the Burnley game yesterday or 2 days ago, where he just absolutely spiked the guy on the calf and was not given or not shown red at all for, whatever reason. So quite interesting that they have, made history in more than one way. But I mean, regardless of what we want to complain about and not, they, congrats to them. They did have a phenomenal defense. I mean, obviously the highlight of that's David Raya, probably the best goalkeeper in the world. Golden Glove, third successive season. I mean, their center back, Celebra, Gabriel, absolutely insane. And then they got good back play as well, which we'll get into later. But yeah, I mean, Arteta's the first formal Arsenal player to win the Prem as Arsenal's manager. So it's been a long road, right? They had that one, I believe, FA Cup during the COVID year, so probably 2020, and since then they've strucken out. Um, they definitely were on, it was possible for a quadruple, but it really started to look like it was going to go south. They had an easier walk to the UCL on their side of the bracket, no doubt about that. So we'll see how they match up against PSG, which is a very, very different style of team. But again, you know what? Congrats to Arsenal. Just get that out of the way now. First Prem in 22 years. You know, I'm sure that's what they need, but I'd rather just talk about Villa, to be honest. So I guess we're going to start with Villa have clinched UCL football, no matter what, regardless, even if we win the Europa League or lose it, whether we win or lose our final game versus Man City, we could finish as low as fifth, probably high as third, if I had to guess. So with the 5 UCL spots going to England for this upcoming year, Villa's back in the UCL for the second time in the past 4 years. This is Emery's. So Emery's been here. I mean, he is one of the best managers in the world, and I will stand by that. He's been with us for 4 years. We have gotten to Europe literally every single year, started in our conference league the first year, and then right into UCL. Obviously, this year, Europa League, where we're going to hope to win our first trophy, European trophy, excuse me, since 1982 when we won the European Cup, which is now the UCL. And then we're going back to the UCL no matter what next year. So, I mean, I don't see how he's not the manager of the season. Villa had a net spend of 28 million euros, which is lower than basically every team in the league, including all the newly promoted sides. And we also dropped literally the first 5 games. We scored like 0 goals in the first 5 game weeks. And now we're probably going to finish fourth, maybe fifth. I mean, it doesn't really matter. And we have a real shot at the European, return to glory. So, I mean, you just have to look at what Emery's done with the resources he's had and, the positions he's been in. And it's absolutely insane to think about that. He was able to take Villa, who were about to get relegated, like surely under Gerrard, at the latter half of 2022, beginning of the 22-23 season. And then he has just propelled us into Europe for 4 years in a row. Um, and it's also very worth mentioning this is his sixth UEL final. He has won the Europa League 4 times. He's only lost it once. And if you had to guess who he lost it with, you probably could be Arsenal in 2019 when they therefore sacked him shortly thereafter. But he has been in this position before. It's actually astonishing how many times he's managed to reach a Europa League final. But that's great news for us Villa fans because we know he's going to be comfortable. We know he's not going to freak out, change any tactics. Right? He's been here. He's played in these big games. He's won these big games many times. So very, very good that we are bringing in this form of experience. Also, we absolutely throttled Liverpool. I was game 4-2, right? Watkins with the double, and then of course Morgan Rogers and John McGinn seemed always fine. I feel like every time Watkins scores at least once, it's always either McGinn or Rogers who are adding a second piece. So seeing us handle Liverpool as easy as that was gives me a lot of confidence going into this final. And because we've also locked up Champions League for next year, it doesn't really matter about this Man City game for the last Prem game week. So we have no reason not to go all out here. There's nothing else to fight for this season. We've already got UCL. We might as well get this European trophy. And I think that obviously favors us quite a lot that we have, literally nothing else to focus on besides this. That'll also help Arsenal, by the way, because, I mean, their players probably would have gotten a lot more wear and tear if you think about the Prem going down to the final day. Right, I believe the UCL finals May 30th. I might be incorrect there, but right, if it goes to the 38th game week, then that's just more chances for people to pick up knocks, injuries, whatever it may be. But they're done, we're done. We're both gonna be rolling into European finals with literally no other responsibilities. So kind of the exactly what you want to be quite honest. But yeah, I mean, absolutely great season for Villa. I mean, we were second for 4 weeks. We were in that title race with Arsenal. It's what you expect, though. I guess, right? We don't really have the depth that a lot of these teams who can afford to spend a lot more money have. So Emery doing what he can with what he is given is very impressive. I'm very happy with this season. Hopefully we can get this done. Right now it's Tuesday, May the 19th. So we play tomorrow. I believe at 3 p.m. Eastern time. So I will most definitely be watching that. I don't think I've been this nervous for a game in a long, long time. I don't think, really since I've been watching Villa since we were, promoted back to the Prem. I think this is probably the biggest game. Yeah, I mean, I can't remember a bigger game that I've personally watched. So I know, everybody's going to be excited for that. But I guess we'll start with the biggest of them all, the Champions League final. Yep, that's going down. I was correct. Excuse me. May 30th, at the Pukas Arena in Budapest. Right, Arsenal versus PSG. Very different approaches to this final. Arsenal got really lucky with the way it shook out. Very weak teams. The only strong teams that Arsenal ran into. I mean, they didn't even run into them. I mean, it was going to be Barcelona, but of course, Barca lost to Atleti, so made it that much easier for Arsenal. to get to this final. Obviously, the other side, not so much. I mean, 6-5 on aggregate over Bayern. I think that might as well have been the actual UCL final because both of those games were absolutely mental. On the other hand, Arsenal defeated the Atletico 2-1 on aggregate. So it's just, it was a tale of two very different roads to Budapest. May I add? But, I mean, it's a lot of, it's like the 2 direct opposites of teams you could ever really think of. I mean, this is gonna be, Arsenal's first shot at the UCL, I believe, since '06. Of course, they've never won that, as everybody knows, and then PSG, obviously, the reigning European champions, have been here many times before. They know what they're doing. This team they're, fronting is just absolutely mental. Like how it, I really want to say every player in that PSG starting 11 like is world class, which is sounds odd coming out of my mouth, but just watching them, especially in the Champions League, um, absolutely insane. I mean, there was a little controversy. I'm sure a lot of people remember how PSG were getting their League One matches, moved so they could prep for UCL matches, which is a little odd that League One was doing it. But, at the end of the day, I guess if you're League One, it makes sense. This is your only team that has a real shot at bringing mass amounts of revenue to your league for winning a European championship. So if PSG says jump, I'm sure League One says how high. So people were upset about that. I'm not the biggest fan of them being allowed to do that, especially because League One's already such a weak league, as it is, to be quite frank. So little shaky there from Luis Enrique, no doubt about that. But I mean, my prediction for this game is, everybody thinks, oh, like PSG is just going to absolutely, stomp on Arsenal. It's going to be, 4-0 by halftime. Like, did you watch either semifinal? Blah 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 blah. Um, this game, mark my words, is probably either going to penalties or it's going to be a 1-0 game in extra time. I think Arsenal, just the way they play, it's going to be 10 men behind the ball at all times. They're going to suck PSG into this gritty, just, brute style of the game that PSG is very much not. And I just don't think PSG is going to be able to escape this. To be quite honest, I think Arsenal's going to force them to play their game, a game that they definitely excel at, despite whether you want to call it an attractive game or not. But I think Arsenal's just going to drag PSG through the full 90, and it's going to be, if Arsenal end up winning, like I said, it's either going to be penalties or it's going to be some corner with, 10 guys in the box all pushing and shoving. It's going to bounce off someone's shoulder and end up in the back of the net. And I really think this is going to be like a 1-0 game. Again, won't be shocked if it goes to pens, but if you're PSG, you have to avoid falling into this trap at all costs. It was a little easier, I would say, against Bayern for them to play their style of football, but just the way Arsenal compact and deliberately defend with so many men behind the ball, it's just going to be hard. And I mean, this is Arsenal wants. They just got their first Prem in 22 years. They want their first UCL ever. You can bet your ass that they will do whatever it takes to bring back this UCL final. And if that means sticking 10 guys in the box and getting one lucky counter attack or a pen somewhere in there, like, so be it. They will not be upset about that. They do not care how they win, as we've seen all year. So it'll be very interesting to do it, but it's also important to know Arsenal's structure. They're really strong playing players out of position. We've seen Declan Rice play center back, play the right and the left backs, play on the wing. Um, Arteta's played inverted fullbacks like Timber. If Zinchenko is fit, he's done it as well. They playing these players out of position, they have been able to just suffocate counterattacks against them so quickly. And I mean, it makes sense, right? You're sending both center backs up into the box because they're such massive targets. And if you just put skilled players like the Rices, like the Timbers, who are fast and who are spatially aware and who can track back really well, regardless if they're playing their true position or not, it's going to be hard for PSG to get these counterattacks going just because Arsenal, I mean, it's drilled into these guys' heads. This is what they do. They are such a solid defensive team, regardless. Of course, they're extremely physical and, sometimes they get away with stuff, but to be honest, every team gets away with stuff all the time. So it'll be very interesting to see. I'm really curious to see what they're going to do with Rice because literally been playing all over the pitch nonstop. Um, put like even in the City game when they needed to win and they were down 2-1, Arteta had moved Rice to right back, and then I can't remember off the top of my head, but had subbed in a more attacking midfielder type of player, um, and kept Rice on the field just because he's that valuable. So we'll see, but I mean at the same time, PSG literally is one of the best teams in the world in transition with just absolutely terrifying speed that they possess. Dembele, Barcola out wide are, if you're Ben White or if you're Timber or Mosquera, you should be terrified. And Travis Scalia too. Like PSG just has so many threats in the transition, just and all over the field. This is going to be the absolute true test for Arsenal. I mean, PSG probably plays some of the best attacking football in the entire world, and Arsenal probably plays some of the best defensive football in the entire world. So we're going to see what happens. I think if PSG can get by Arsenal's initial counter press, it's going to have Saliba and Gabriel tracking back all game. It's going to get them tired. I think they're going to start losing foot races. And I think if PSG can do this, they're just going to slowly just pry apart Arsenal. And I don't know how Arsenal's going to deal with that, especially if Arsenal go into a deficit. I mean, PSG scored 3 goals in the first half of their first leg of the semifinal. If Arsenal need to dig themselves out of a 3-0, deficit in 45 minutes, it's just not going to happen. So they need to be airtight on defense. I don't think they can afford to even go down a goal, to be quite honest, just with how aggressive PSG is and how slow and sometimes how long it takes. I mean, we all watched the 1-0 when they had over Burnley, how painfully slow they were on offense at time, and that's against the 19th placed Premier League team in the entire league. So we will see. I mean, if you want to talk about Arsenal's offense as well, they love to put Saka on the right wing all alone. Odegaard and Ben White will constantly try and create overloads to get Saka free against these fullbacks, which they do very well, which allows Saka to whip in these crosses, which can be very dangerous, as we've seen so many times. And not even that. I mean, Saka can, attack pretty well at times. He really hasn't been great, and I don't rate him that high, to be quite honest. But I would never count out, Arsenal on free passes. They can just swing into the middle. So if you're PSG, you have to be really, really careful. But at the same time, like the most explosive left back in world football is Nuno Mendes. His positioning at times and spatial awareness can be a little off, and it has hurt PSG, especially in that both legs against Bayern. But if he gets Saka one-on-one, I think it's going to be ugly for Saka. I think Saka's going to be in Mendes' pocket. Like one-on-one, this guy might be one of the best defending outside backs in the entire world. It just worries me that if people are making runs in behind them like Saka does, I mean, we just talked about how Odegaard and Ben White love to create these overloads to set Saka free. If you catch Nuno Mendes in one of these overloads, I would be a little worried. He does allow guys in behind him, a lot of times. And like I said, the last thing you want is Saka getting in behind you and just spamming crosses into the box. Because, honestly, eventually one of them's going to hit. And then, I mean, even on the converse too, if PSG's attack, Arsenal can really just hinder this attack if Saka can pin back Mendes, from getting up and down the pitch because, um, he really plays the entire field. So if you're Saka, you need to do your best to not only tire him out, but to stick with him, for the full length of the pitch, which has been a problem for Saka as well. So I really think this matchup, this Mendes Saka match, really favors PSG here. I think it might be pretty ugly, especially if Saka's getting run in circles up and down, the touchline. But we will see. I mean, I guess more importantly, we could even talk about, this midfield battle that's gonna go down with, they have PSG's got Vitinha, Zaire Emery, just absolutely, solid midfielders, some of the best in the world. Really good, pass resistance and defense. Um, you know, they are, again, going up with Declan Rice and Martin Odegaard. If you're Odegaard and Rice, you have to disrupt PSG's build-up phase to, not let them get on these fast breaks. Like I said, this is one of the fastest attacking teams in world football. You need to force PSG just to, you know, force the ball back, make back passes, just slow up their entire offense. Odegaard and Havertz, they really need to press very effectively, perhaps even force PSG into this long kick and run game that Arsenal likes to favor. And, if Arsenal can do that, they do excel in winning those second balls and just dominating the aerial territory in their, defensive third. So if you can, you know, like I said, I already said I think it's going to happen. If you can change the way PSG are going to play football by just simply not allowing them to flow the way they normally do by just mucking up the entire pitch, starting with, of course, Odegaard, Havertz, Rice, Saka, whoever it's going to be, I think that's where Arsenal's going to find the most success. And if they can't, I think it might get really, really ugly, and I think PSG might rip them apart. But I just don't think that Arsenal will go down that easily. Like I said, I'm still calling it here. It's going to be a 1-0 game, definitely into the 90 plus, extra time or pens. I don't think it'll be decided under 90. I mean, that's a little ambitious to say. We will see. But yeah, I mean, should be incredibly entertaining. It's going to be a heated game, no doubt. Just Arsenal's antics, PSG's antics, like it'll be fun. It'll be fun to watch, no doubt about that. But moving on, more importantly, at least in my eyes, Villa, we're looking to win our first European trophy since '82. Absolutely huge game against Freiburg, the German side. Like I said, this is Emery's sixth Europa League final appearance. He's chasing his fifth trophy in this competition. Undeniable psychological edge, no doubt about that. I mean, like I said, we already said it. Emery's been here. He knows what he's doing. Makes me really confident. It also makes me confident that Freiburg's missing, I think, their best player, in my opinion, Yuto Suzuki, the Japanese forward they have, who's been absolutely phenomenal for them all year. I believe broke his collarbone or something really unfortunate like that, which is quite a shame, to be honest, because I would have loved to watch a matchup against Villa because he's just an absolutely, quality player. However, this is Freiburg's first ever European final after they knocked out Braga in that semifinal. I think they've been around for 122 years, so like you can't count these guys out. They're obviously not going down easier. Bekistas Park in Istanbul is a smaller stadium. It's going to be loud. We know these German teams have just absolutely nutty atmospheres in the Bundesliga. So if you are going for your first ever, not only first ever European final, but your first ever European trophy, the fans, I can assure you, are going to be absolutely unhinged for Freiburg, and that's definitely going to affect Villa. I mean, right? All atmospheres do, but I just think, Emery's been here. He's seen that before. We need McGinn and Morgan Rogers to be absolutely informed. This defense that Freiburg has is really stubborn, kind of like Arsenal. But I think if Rogers and McGinn and Emery are all on their game, I think we really shouldn't struggle with that. You know, knock on wood. I don't want to speak too soon. Again, this is going to be a hungry Freiburg team. We we will see. Um, both of these teams play, I would say, pretty high lines. I mean, Emery is notorious for our offensive trap and high D line that we have ran a lot. Torres and Konsa are really good at compressing the pitch. So, especially you say what you want about Luka Dean and Matty Cash, they can compress really well, regardless of the other aspects of their games that might be lacking. No doubt about that. It's definitely Villa's weakest part of the pitch is our outside backs. Not even on the attacking front. I think they're actually quite serviceable attacking, just defensively, which is what really matters, obviously, is a little worrying. So this high line, I think Villa is coordinated enough. I think they know what they're doing. Obviously, I think this Liverpool win was really good for them and a great confidence booster. And I think they know how much this would mean to not only Villa fans, obviously, but Emery, who has literally dragged us out of the mud and back into just relevance and glory. Um, I would really like to see a very aggressive high line. However, right, high risk, high reward, half second off, and you just isolated Emi Martinez into a one-on-none with a Freiburg attacker. So it'll be interesting, right? That's how Freiburg has played. I don't know if anyone's been able to really watch them. Been able to watch a couple games and then, did a lot of highlight watching. They really thrive on creating turnovers in the midfield and then just immediately hitting channels and breaking right into transition. And that's how they score a lot of goals. Suzuki was a huge part in this, which is, devastating for Freiburg, to be quite honest. They have Vincenzo Grifo and Rutsuton on the wings who can do, can be serviceable. Grifo's more of a aerial ball winning, forward in the box. So without Suzuki, it's going to be interesting to see how they approach this offensively. But like I said, if Villa's, offside trap timing is even off by a fraction of a second, Freiburg has these direct runners to punish them one-on-one against Emi Martinez. And obviously Emi's great with these, one-on-none saves or these one-on-one saves, but you never want to be putting your goalkeeper in a position like that in the first place, right? To be obvious. So we'll see about that. Villa defends it's mostly a 4-4-2, but we attack in a 3-box-3. So that's McGinn and Tielemans, excuse me, especially with Rodgers constantly creating like a narrow box in the inside of the midfield, which allows for our wingers to have a lot of space, which has really, really helped us. And especially when they're putting in balls to Watkins, who I think has scored like 11 or 12 in his last 9 or 10 games, something, absolute resurgence in the late half of the season. And you know what? It's better late than never. And I would absolutely love to see, Watkins be the hero, especially as all the backlash he's received, which I have criticized him quite heavily, especially during the winter portion of the season. He was not great and he was not the, the forward we need him to be, but glad to see him back. But it's not going to be easy. Freiburg is a pretty, they operate on a really disciplined, like double pivot. So right, Villa has to just outnumber them centrally. Excuse me. If McGinn and Rodgers can be found in the half spaces, it's just going to absolutely rip apart this Freiburg defense, and it's going to put Ollie Watkins in such great positions. I mean, his finishing has been iffy at times, but I think he's just so in form right now that if we can get him the ball and destroy this double pivot, that Freiburg's just going to be in a really, really bad spot. So I'm looking forward to that, no doubt. Hopefully, I mean, I'm trying to think off the top of my head if we have any notable knocks that we didn't already know about going into this. I don't think we do. Again, we literally have nothing else to worry about. UCL football's already been secured. Season is over. We're, what is done in the Prem. So it is all in on this game tomorrow at 3 p.m. in Istanbul. I am so excited. Hopefully it goes well, but we will see. We will see. And then lastly, moving on here to the Conference League final. We have Crystal Palace from the Premier League, currently 15th in the Prem. Um, excuse me, sorry. Versus Rayo Vallecano of La Liga. I guess before getting into this, it's also worth noting that what makes Emery's manager of the season candidacy so strong is that, I mean, if you think about this Palace team to go to European final, especially these teams that don't have the spending range. I mean, I'm going to reference Tottenham, so we can disregard that. But West Ham's push for the Conference League in 23, they almost got relegated. I think they finished 17th. Tottenham, same thing last year in the Europa League in a relegation battle. This year, Palace, it's not a relegation battle, but 15th place is certainly not good. And then you have Villa, who have pushed all the way to European final, spending 28 net million euros, and currently sit fourth in the Premier League. So it's just absolutely mind-boggling that Emery's been able to do this. But right, Palace coming off the FA Cup run last year. This is their first ever major European final. And then you look right to the other side of the pitch. This is also Rayo's first ever shot at a European trophy. So it is just two underdogs who are going to be hungry. Have never really both been in this position before. It's kind of why I love the Conference League, to be honest. I mean, it's better when teams not like Chelsea, who are just spending £2 billion. And, obviously you're going to win the Conference League if you spend $2 billion. So I love seeing smaller teams, like the Villas, who, of course, we weren't able to do it, but like the Palaces or the Rios, who are able to get shots at meaningful European silverware. But I guess we'll get into, transitioning and pressing like we've kind of been talking about for all the games. Palace have been absolutely great on this counterattack through the tournament. They dismantled Shakhtar 5-2 on aggregate in the semifinal, absorbed really good pressure in their defensive block. And then their transition's pretty good. My goodness, sorry. It is worth noting, and really bad for U.S. fans here, that Chris Richards picked up a knock in their last Prem game. So he's definitely not 100%. If I had to guess, I would assume he's going to do everything in his power to try and get in that starting 11, or at least come off the bench for whatever reason. But that's a huge blow with Chris Richards, especially for the U.S.'s World Cup stuff. Getting a little off topic here, but we'll dive into that in a future episode before the World Cup starts. But yeah, Richards is a big blow for Palace's defensive block that was really solid in that semifinal. And I say that because this Rayo, the Spanish side, they are just, you watch any of their games, any of their highlights, they just have this high octane pressing game where they want to suffocate Palace really high on the pitch and force turnovers in their defensive third. So they're going to be on the center backs like White on Rice. And if you don't have Chris Richards, who's great on the ball, and you have, I do admit, I do not know who their second choice center back are. It's a little scary for Palace, and I'm sure Rayo knows this, and they're going to be right on by it. But hey, if Palace can bypass this first wave of pressure and play through the press, Rayo's back line is going to be really weak, and it's going to be really vulnerable to these Mateta through balls. He's so great in the transition. So I think you look up that there. Same with the, Palace wingers one-on-one, if they have the space, which they probably will from this Rayo press. With this dangerous overlapping of fullbacks they always love to do and whipping in the crosses. Really, if Rayo's going to get beat bad in the press, it's going to be over up the pitch. So it's a very all-in type of game plan from Rayo here, excuse me. But it'll be interesting to watch. Neither of these teams have ever won a, European final, so we will see. But that's all for now. Thank you for watching. Remember, Apple, Spotify, YouTube. Give us a follow on Instagram at the Green Line Gazette. And thank you for tuning in. I'll definitely be updating about the Villa game after tomorrow. and then, of course, after the UCL, and then we'll be doing a World Cup preview shortly. But appreciate you guys tuning in, and until next